Welcome to the Monday Motivation Spotlight. I'm Lesley Kaplan, welcoming you to another inspiring edition featuring resilient and inspiring individual making a difference in Israel. This podcast was started as the result of October 7th, where we chose to spotlight people making a difference. Today, our special guest is Debbie Chitiz, who is a resilient and inspiring South African-born Israeli whose life has been shaped by personal strength following different challenges. She made aliyah twice in 1977 after school and then again 10 years later. She's a marathon open water swimmer, including multiple crossings of the Kinneret and a 46-kilometer swim around Manhattan. Wow. Along her journey, Debbie has navigated different transitions and challenges, including dealing with thyroid cancer, with divorce, and sadly, following October 7th, with the tragic killing of her son, Yaron. Yaron was a deputy commander in the Givati Brigade who was killed just before his 24th birthday. She continues to swim and live with purpose, with much of her swimming dedicated to Yaron's memory. So, Debbie, welcome as our guest on the Monday Motivation Spotlight. I'm so happy to have you here. I met you just a couple of days ago in person when you inspired us on Yom HaZikaron leading into Yom HaAtzmaut, when you spoke in front of my community about your story, but more your son Yaron's story and all about him. And I really felt like I knew you, even though I'd heard of you before. Maybe it was because of our mutual accent. I really felt like I knew you. So welcome. I'm delighted to have you here.
Thank you. And thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So let's go back to Debbie as a child, growing up in South Africa before you made aliyah. And of course, as we said, we have the same accent. So we both made aliyah from the same place. Were you obviously aware of Israel? At what stage did Israel become an option growing up as a Jew? Share with us a little bit about that and your desire and your choice to make aliyah.
I came from a very Zionistic family, and my mother was a member of Habonim in her youth. I became a member of Habonim from way back. I still remember wearing the Habonim uniform, which doesn't exist today. So I must have been like very young. I also was a madricha in the movement. I went to King David Linksfield from grade 1 to matric. So I was very aware of my Jewishness, very aware of Israel, very aware of where I wanted to be. And although I had never been to Israel, it was always my dream to go on aliyah. And I actually made aliyah the first time, never ever having been in the country. So that was quite a brave move.
Wow. So actually we have something again similar, because me too, I was literally engaged to be married, having committed to make aliyah without ever having steps in the country.
So Israel was always at the forefront of my family, grandparents, everybody. We were all very Zionistic. Most of my mom's family live in this country. Out of my grandfather's 8 siblings, 6 of them in the branches all live here. So it was natural. It wasn't something that I just grew up naturally knowing that Israel would be the place where I would go.
Wow, fantastic. And as I mentioned earlier, you made aliyah twice. You came in 1977 on Mechina, and then you went back and remade aliyah 10 years later. So tell us a little bit about that, the decision about the Mechina, went back, coming back, all about that.
So I left as a young 17-year-old, young, naive 17-year-old from South Africa, did a Mechina only for immigrants in Jerusalem at WDLN Teachers Training College, and then studied first year at Wingate. And there I was like a fish out of water. I was 18 and everybody was after the army with life experiences way beyond mine. They were 26, 27. And socially, I was unhappy. And that made me come back. I didn't want to stop the studying, but I wasn't happy. So I came back in the July of 79 and started studying in South Africa, correspondence, a BA in Hebrew, majoring in Hebrew and psychology via UNISA, and working simultaneously, teaching Hebrew. I always was very busy. And when I met Clive, I always knew it was my dream to come back to Israel. It wasn't really his dream, but somehow we landed back up here in April 87. We came with Doron. Also, the beginnings were hard, but we decided to make it work. And in fact, we've just celebrated our 39th aliyah anniversary, and I wouldn't live anywhere else. With all the bad and the good, I wouldn't change my life and live anywhere else.
I agree with you. And I think that's something and it's come up in discussion on podcasts before. It's something that you have to live here to feel that. There's just something in the air, something in the atmosphere, which makes it special living here despite all the difficulties and the challenges.
Exactly.
Right. It's funny, you mentioned about feeling like a fish out of water at Wingate, and we'll talk about it as we move forward. You're very much a fish in the water and a water baby. In fact, maybe you'd like to talk about it now, how you developed your passion for swimming. You're a marathon swimmer. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. So life has dealt me quite a few challenges along the way. In 2003, Clive said that he wanted to divorce me. I'm being open. And that sent me to do something for myself. And I said, I need to start swimming. I was a swimmer, but not a good swimmer. I could swim well. And I joined a master's group in kibbutz. I'll think about the name soon. Oh, Givati. I heard of a master's group and I started training there really religiously twice a week. And this water literally has saved my soul. I started swimming in July 2003. Just in the pool. I didn't even have goggles. I didn't have a cap. I had a bathing suit. I think I borrowed one even for that first training session. And I've come a long way. And I found that the swimming, the water, has saved me on numerous occasions. And whatever challenge I've dealt with, the quicker I got back into the water, the quicker I myself healed. So Clive did me a service, a good favor, actually. I always give him credit because that's when I started, and I've never stopped. I first started swimming in the pool, which was, like I said, July 2003. And in 2012, there was an open water race, and everybody from my group, I swam with Givati, which is a group near Kinneret. They were all going to take part, and I said, okay, I'll go. And when I got to the beach, I said, how do I go in? I'm born in Johannesburg. I know nothing about the sea. And they said, you just walk in. And that was a start. I'm not sure if I really enjoyed that first race, but I said, I'll give it another try. And after the second try, I said, that's it, I'm hooked. I did an open water camp a year later and opened a new door for me in swimming. I have the most incredible stamina. I can swim for hours on end. I don't get tired. I seem to get stronger as I go along. And I don't like sprinting. So the open water for me was the answer to my water issues. And I just love being in the water. And today, sea is my preferred destination, but I still do swim in the pool as well.
Wow, that's fantastic. I can so identify with some of the things you say because I'm a water baby. I love swimming. So when you talk about just going in and it just became like you were passionate about it, but also actually being in the water, just that feeling when you have the noises all blocked out and you hear these, I don't even know how you would describe it, like the bubbles or the noise of the water in the background. It's pretty soothing. It's like a kind of therapy in some way.
Actually, I was in the sea 2 days ago and there was a slight swell. And I just said in Hebrew, the swell, it just like, how do I say, it strokes the body. I just like feel totally calm. And
Right.
I just love that feeling of being in the water. The water is very soothing. I love the time out with myself. I often call the water my office. That's where I do all my thinking. It can be good thinking, bad thinking, and sometimes just counting strokes. So whenever I've gone through whatever challenge, whether it was death of parents, divorce, my illness, Yaron, that's where the water plays the most amazing part in my life. I do my thinking, and often I say, I wish I could just take a pen and paper with me because I think all the thoughts, and when I get out, I sometimes don't remember all what I've thought about. But at least the ideas, most of my speeches are born in the water, and then I work on them afterwards, and I hope that the idea will come back in the next swim. Sometimes it doesn't, but the water has literally soothed me and saved me time over and time over.
That's fantastic. I love it. And as you said, you're doing something for yourself, which is so important, which many women or even men, when we get to a certain age, maybe once the kids are older, we start doing it. But it's very important to have these passions for ourselves And that makes us better people and better to adapt to our workplace and everything else.
A lot of time we're so busy running around our families, our children, we don't stop and think about ourselves. And only when you're in a crisis, I think that's when you take a step back and say, what can I do to save me? I actually said to somebody today, I don't know how I am so strong. And she answered, you've always been. So maybe I've been gifted that I was born with that chosen, that extra strength to deal with whatever I've been dealt with.
Right, and we're
All
going to
the
talk about
challenges.
that now. And they say it's not that one wants to be dealt these things, chas v'chalila, but they say that Hashem gives only those that he believes can deal with these challenging issues, these particular issues. And yeah,
I say that myself, and I truly believe it. Although some people get given the challenges and can't deal with it, I have learned
to deal with it and to stay positive at the same time as much as possible.
Absolutely.
Just so our viewers can get an idea, just mention some of the marathons and the length, the kilometers that you've swum, just so they realize how special this is.
So that first race that I was talking about was 1.9 kilometers. And for me, then that was long. Now, if you tell me that you want to swim with me 1.9 kilometers, I say, not worth the effort. It's too short. Marathons in swimming is anything over 10 kilometers. I have done the long cross of the Kinneret, which is 20.5 kilometers, 4 times. The first time we did a trial swim with a group of 30 swimmers. It was amazing. When you do these marathon swims, you always have a boat accompanying you. You don't do it on your own. And I just love it. It's hard. And I always say to do the swim well, you have to train hard. If you train hard, then on the day you swim well. You can't arrive at these swims and just get in and swim. It's the same as if you were training for a marathon. You wouldn't just arrive at the marathon start. You would train. So it's all a matter of how you train. I've always had a training program. And every time I finish the Kinneret, I said, I want to do it again. So now I've just done the fourth one was done last year, May, and was part of the training program for our major swim. I did a tandem swim with another friend of mine. We registered together as a tandem swim and we got accepted. It's the 46 kilometers of, it's called the 20 Bridges. There's the shirt of the 20 Bridges. It's around Manhattan, the East Harlem and Hudson Rivers. It's one of the 3 major swims that form part of the Triple Crown in swimming. There's Manhattan, there's the La Manche, the Channel in England, and Catalina in San Francisco. This one, what's special about it is that you sightseeing while you're swimming because you're going around the island. So you see the skyline of Manhattan. You see the whole thing and the Statue of Liberty.
That must be incredible.
It's much amazing. And then you go under the 20 bridges and each bridge is different. It's massive. I look now at my pictures and you see how massive they are and you see us swimming in the water under these amazing bridges. And it's the most amazing swim. The year that I did it, 2025, just over 100 swimmers did it. You have to apply, you have to get accepted, and then it's training. And it's a lot of training. It's like getting to 40 kilometers a week before you're about to swim, which is hard. It's 5-6 kilometers a day. I don't swim on Shabbat, which means that I always have to make sure that by the time I've got to Friday, I've done my mileage. It's a lot of pressure. It puts a lot of pressure on you as well. But the minute you know you've got a challenge and you've decided to do it, it's easier to carry on and not give up. But it's not easy. And then obviously the feat of doing it and finishing it, it's like, wow. Now every time I see the Hudson River, I say, I can't actually believe that we did it. But we did it in memory of Yaroni.
Let's move on to that now because not everyone maybe knows about you and Yaron's story. And then when you're saying you're doing it in his memory, I can totally understand how it's even more of a push that you're going to do it and I can do it. So let's share with our viewers that October 7th hit us all. And sadly, some families it hit more than others. And sadly, your son Yaron, who you call Yaroni, and I think we've all started calling him Yaroni now, was killed after October 7th. So share with us that story that changed your life and your family's life totally.
Okay, so I have 5 children. Doron, Daniel, Dovi, Yaeli, and Yaroni, who is the youngest of my crew. There's a very big age gap between the youngest and the oldest. There's 15 years between the oldest and the youngest. Meaning when I got divorced when Yaroni was 4, we all brought Yaroni up. Amazing person, amazing child. We knew he was special. We didn't know how special he was. So in October 23, he was doing his normal, regular army training. Because he was an officer, he had signed on to do extra time. He had drafted in Corona in March 2020. And it caught him during their service where they were. At that time, they were it's the area, Judea and Samaria. That's where they were training. And when the war broke out, his unit, Givati, was one of the first to go into Gaza. He himself only got there 3 weeks later with his soldiers. They had to wait until they were given permission to go down south. It wasn't an easy time for all of us. The war was stressful for all of Israel. In the beginning, the streets were empty. Nobody was working. You didn't know what was going on. And I think everybody was just in a daze. I often talk about the time that somebody asked me my ID number and I couldn't remember it. And I couldn't eat. I used to force myself to put something in my mouth because all I did was worry. I never heard from him often. And that's because he took care of his soldiers. He was in touch with their parents, updating them about their children. And I never heard from him, and I didn't understand that that's how it works. An officer takes care of his soldiers. He didn't think about himself. At some stage, a message got out to him that he needs to tell us that he's also okay. They went into the war 3 weeks after. And from there, it got even more stressful because every time they went into Gaza, you weren't allowed to take a phone. He would say, I'm going in, I'm without a phone. You'll hear from me when you hear from me. Not easy for anybody to live with that kind of worry. Just children being in the army here is a natural worry. But there is such a difference between normal and wartime. Wartime just hits another level. He was doing a good job, and he was the deputy commander of the Shaked company in the Givati Brigade. He was a well-loved commander. He was stern with his soldiers, but on the other hand, he was their best friend. Do you want me to go into, how far do you want me to get to now to carry on with the war story?
Right. So I'd like you to share the story. Before you do, I just want to say that there are elements, obviously, of your story that I can identify with. Having a son, he's done more than 600 days, and we went through the same, exactly what you described, not knowing and not having his phone off for many days. And the truth is, my son is still on Miluim as we speak, in and out over the 3 years. So yes, please do carry on with the rest of the story now.
I'll carry on. In fact, my third son, Dovi, has also been in Miluim. He was in Miluim for 2 years, and he hopefully is finishing tomorrow for a short bout again. But yes, that's also amazing. I have to give credit that he opted to go back.
And actually, I do want to just touch on this before you finish it with the Yaron story. Did you need to give permission for your son, a second son, being in the army and going into battle, or he's not officially going into battle?
So what happens is they get the choice to decide whether they want to carry on, and he opted to carry on his own. They said who wants to go back to the army and who not. So he chose to carry on serving. I don't have to sign. I presume if they weren't married, maybe they would ask me, but they decided on their own. So he went back in on October the 7th. When Yaroni called to say that we shouldn't leave our homes because terrorists had infiltrated into Israel, we never knew what that meant for us. Anyway, Givati never sent their soldiers home during the war, and nor did the paratroopers, Sant Khanim. They stayed there. They were worried that maybe the soldiers wouldn't go back after the weekend, which meant we spoke to Yaroni on WhatsApp, sometimes on the telephone when we could, and we never saw him. And then there was the exchange of the hostages at the end of November. There were 5 days where hostages were released. They still didn't let them come home, but they let us go and visit him down south. So it was a Saturday evening after Shabbat. We drove down about 2 hours to get there. We spent 2 hours with him, but all the soldiers were there. All the Givati parents were there, meaning that he was answering to his soldiers' parents who wanted to know what was going on. And we were there also on the side. I just remember just sitting and just watching, but we were all there. We had family photos taken there. And I just sat. I didn't talk. I just sat and I watched. And then we came back the Saturday night. They went back into Gaza soon after the exchange bit ended. I don't remember the exact date. And again, they never came home. Then in December, around about the 21st, if I've got the date right, there was rumor that they were going to get a weekend off. The whole family knew except for me. They decided not to tell me, and he was going to surprise me. It was a Thursday evening. I knew that he wanted a radio. I got the radio ready. I've even got the batteries. So I'd written a note on the back of the batteries, just a small note, just saying, stay safe. That's what I always used to say. And on the Thursday evening, my second son, Daniel, said, we've got a way to get the radio to Yaron. I said, fine, I'll come downstairs and I'll bring the radio. He said, no, don't come downstairs. I'll come up and fetch it. And I should have been suspicious because on a Thursday night, 7 o'clock, he's got 3 young kids. He's never out at those hours. Unless there's a function or whatever going on, he's with the kids. And he comes in and he starts talking to me absolute rubbish. There's the video. It went viral. He's talking about...
I saw that video. You showed us the video when you spoke about him.
Yes.
Beautiful.
And then as I'm talking, the door opens and Yaroni walks in. Now, he's very big, this big... He was always small. He grew up to this big hunking man, and he just walked in and hugged, and I screamed, done, in that video. Nobody realizes why I screamed. I screamed because he had lied to me. There are people probably saying, why are you saying done if that's Yaroni? But I couldn't believe that he actually got me. They actually surprised me. This video went viral all over the world. Everybody was sharing their happiness and posting and reposting. I didn't even know how to post at that time. Eventually, I managed. I also posted it, and I kept on sending people messages. I've seen Yaroni. Yaroni's home. And then the tension relaxed because we were there. He was home. We could see him. We could touch him. We could be with him. We didn't have lots of time with him because he was in every direction. He was home from the Thursday night till the Sunday morning. I think he just did whatever he wanted. Barbecuing, seeing friends, playing soccer, running in every direction. They talk about that there were rumors that on the Friday morning at 3 o'clock, he was still walking the streets of Renana. He came home unshaven, definitely hungry, dirty, and all he did was run around. He managed to have a haircut. And Friday night, I had all the family here. We all ate together. The Chitiz 5 were together again. On Shabbat, we were together in Shul. Dovi had just had a daughter. So they named the baby. They came through for that weekend. Also, credit to my daughter-in-law. The baby was 5 days old and she came to our home because everybody loved Yaroni and nobody wanted to miss this weekend. And now I'm sure that everybody is so excited that they did come the last weekend in Yaroni's life. When he went back on the Sunday morning, I wasn't at ease. And I used to always give him the blessing, the Kohanim blessing, the mother's blessing. And he hated that I blessed him on every other day and it wasn't a Friday. And I stood there and I didn't give him the blessing. But I got my hug and he went and I said, stay safe. This time, the stay safe didn't work. So like I said before, I am a swimmer. On Tuesday morning, I was in the water and battling. I had this heaviness come over me. And I just said, Debbie, swim. You don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. And I was swimming in the pool. Because of the war, the sea wasn't open, I think. I can't actually remember when the sea opened or closed, but I would go near and I swam in the pool and I came home. I was busy. I was working. I babysat one of my grandchildren was in hospital in the evening. And eventually I got home at 11:15. I was exhausted. I'd had a busy day and obviously a tense day because the fighting at that stage was tense. Every day, soldiers were being killed. There wasn't a day that went by without soldiers being killed for a long time. And I got back at 11:15, got into bed at some stage, and at 1:15, I heard the knocking on my door. Now, I had imagined I always heard the knocking from day one of the war, and I would run at night and check, and it was just me imagining that night. I knew they were real knocks, and I didn't go to the door. And they had to knock again. And when I saw the 3 soldiers standing there, I knew they'd come for Yaroni because Dovi was at home. Thank God. So I didn't have to say who and which. And that was the start of our lives of a bereaved family. He was killed in the north of Gaza. He was in the top floor of a building. His unit was downstairs getting guidance for what had to be done on the next day. He had opted to go up, even though he didn't. In his position of a deputy commander, he didn't have to go and stand guard, but he chose to do. We think that maybe he wanted some quiet, and he was the one who did have the phone, so that he was in contact with the outside world. He had heard about a soldier being killed that day in Renana, who's a friend of his, and he had told somebody who was near him that Shauli Gringlik had been killed that day. Then what's crazy here is they had checked the building to see that it was clear to go in. At that stage, nobody checked the roofs, and he was, like I said, on the top floor. The terrorists came in from the roof, confronted Yaroni, shot, and then another 2 soldiers came running up. They were subsequently shot and killed as well, and a 4th one survived the battle. And that's what we know right now. It was crazy.
Tell me about when you said about the knock on the door, this, you'd imagine this knock on the door all the time, which I can understand. It's also having a son in the army all the time. It's everyone's biggest nightmare. But when you actually did hear the knock on the door, you're saying you did not go and open the door. Was it that subconscious feeling that knowing that the moment you open the door, your life is going to change?
I knew it was real. And I knew that I didn't imagine.
What goes through your head, and God forbid none wants to be in that situation. What goes through your head during that time?
There's a lot that I don't remember. I think I've deleted that I don't remember. But I remember feeling like a deflated balloon. I think that would be the best expression. I collapsed on the couch. I don't remember much more.
Mm-hmm. You had other people in the house.
My daughter happened to be at home that night. She wasn't here often, but she was unmarried. So she had an apartment in Ariel, and she had a boyfriend in Tel Aviv. So she would be all over the place. Thank God she was in Renana that night. Because as they knocked, I left them standing at the door, and I ran to call her to say something, and I don't even remember my words, but something about Yaroni. And that's when she came out, and that's when they told both of us, and I don't remember how they told us. And then we had to start phoning the family, because what happens is you have to phone everybody before they release it to the press. So it's also the family in Israel and the close family outside of Israel. Clive, Yaroni's father, at that time was in South Africa. So we had to get hold of him. I've got siblings that live overseas. We had to get hold of them. And also the first cousins over here. You don't want them to hear it on the radio. And nobody was answering the phone, but that I couldn't do. Yaeli, together with one of the 3 officers, did all the calls to everybody. I don't know how she did it.
Somehow, as you say, when you're in that moment of being challenged, you find that strength that you don't know that you had. May not be right away, but sometimes within time.
So she did that. She had to call everybody, from the brothers to father and to all the cousins. And Clive never answered her call. So then I called him, and he answered mine, and I told him that Yaroni had been killed, and he didn't hear me. He wasn't hearing, or he didn't want to hear it. And then I told him again. That was the marathon to get him back to Israel. And in a way, a blessing that he wasn't in the country. Otherwise, Renana would have buried 2 boys on the same day, and they're buried next to each other. You get a choice, the option to bury in Mount Herzl or in the Renana Military Cemetery. And both families chose the Renana Military Cemetery. I just hate to think what it would have been like to have really the 2 of them on the same day straight after one another. It would have been horrendous. So we got a day to breathe, to reflect. It was the first day. It was like a day of shiva without having buried.
Without having official shiva.
Yeah. They announced it at 6:00 on the 27th of December. Also, we called a few close friends so that they would be here rather than hear it on the news. My friends were saying, Debbie, you need to go shower. your house is going to be streaming with visitors. I said, nobody's going to be coming. They said, Debbie. And eventually I listened. And really from 6 o'clock, as people heard, it was like a station here.
Your close friends started coming.
Everybody,
Wow.
people from the
Wow.
street, not even close, just people just arrived to, that's what was going on then.
That's the thing that we said about Am Yisrael. He was your son, but also like he was everyone's son, because that's how it is. What I'd like to ask you is, how does one pick up? Yes, do you think you were a resilient and strong person before? Or would you say that this was the turning point where Debbie became resilient and you turned your life around? Because we haven't yet mentioned that you had thyroid cancer a couple of years ago. So do you want to just throw that in, and we'll just talk about resilience and how we pick up ourselves and move forward and pull ourselves forward?
So I think Debbie has always been strong. Anybody who can make aliyah at the age of 17 on her own without having seen the country, that I think says something about strength, or maybe being silly. But I've always had strength. And like I say, after every challenge that I've been through, the quicker I got back into the water, that's what healed me. When I had my thyroid cancer, I probably went back to the water too soon, but I knew that I had to get in. Even if I wasn't at full strength, I had to feel the water. I had to have the water soothing me. And the same thing here. We sat Shiva, and the day after Shiva, I couldn't move. I just couldn't do anything. I was walking around the house, and after having the house streaming with thousands of people, we probably had 1,000 people every day. And suddenly you're on your own in the home. I couldn't do anything. I just wandered around aimlessly. But the next day, it was a Friday, I said, I'm going to swim, and I did. And I started swimming already on day 9. I remember driving on the roads the first time and seeing Yachad Nenatzeach, together we will win, knowing that I had just buried a son, and the tears falling down, streaming down. That's another thing that I have to say. Every first is extremely difficult. So that whole first year was hard, but I kept myself going. Even in Corona, I never walked around in pajamas. I got dressed every day. Even if it was the same skirt with a different shirt, I made sure to always get dressed. And that's one thing I've seen a lot of people who deal with this. They always suggest to their clients, get dressed. It makes you feel better. So I got dressed in my bathing suit, went to swim, came home. And I don't know, like I say, I get my strength from 3 things. It's the family, my faith, and the water. And the order changes. It's never the same order. And I just get up and I just carry on. Because here it's really sink or swim, and I'm not prepared to sink. I've been through dark challenges. I've been in the bottom of the pit, and I don't want to go there again. So if I can carry on swimming and keep myself afloat, that's what I'm going to do. And that's how I keep myself going. And I'm tough on myself.
Incredible. You are definitely an inspiration. And as we said, it's not a given, because you said it's sink or swim, and you are not going to sink, you are going to swim in the literal and figuratively sense of the word. It's not a given, because many people don't know how to do it. And it's that half cup full attitude that you are portraying.
I've always said I appreciate my half cup, the gratitude. And I've said, even in this horrendous story, I'm grateful for what did happen. Yaron wasn't taken hostage. His whole body came home. We could donate organs. We could see him. We could sing to him, and we could bury him, a proper burial, which also not to be taken for granted after what we've gone through with hostages. And I am truly grateful. And I learned that from my mom. She used to always say her half cup full. And I do see my half cup full.
I was actually just going to say to you, where do you think you learned it from?
From my mom.
Do you think that you've portrayed that message to your children as well?
I definitely have. Now, my mom died young at 69, and I'm now 66. But I've learned from her. There's so many things I take from her. And it didn't matter how bad her life was. She always had a smile. Now, I can't always smile, but I do try to. But I certainly am grateful for what I have. I am.
Wow, incredible, incredible. Your parting message to anyone listening to this, somebody who's going through a rough stage, whatever their challenge is?
To try and get back to what you did before. If you did a hobby or a sport or whatever, the sooner you can get back to that, that will get you out of, that's what I believe. It will help you get out of the situation you're in. Doesn't help to sit and mope. We live with the grief. We learn now how to live with the grief aside us, but we also can learn to live, to carry on, because we have chosen life. And I think that's the only answer.
Life is a choice. You're right. It's our choice. There are things that are beyond our control, as we've seen, but it's our choice how we handle what's given to us, what's thrown at us.
And we try and tell people, try and live a life that's worth remembering, and let us live a life that's worth living, because Yaron gave up his life. He sacrificed so that we could carry on living. So let us all try and live a life that we can remember. That's what we try and say to people.
Amen. Absolutely. Just out of interest, I'm assuming that you've spoken and this positive mindset to groups of friends, Yaron's friends.
I haven't spoken to his friends, but when they're around, we just speak. I haven't done the talks with younger people, but
You're saying they feel your positive attitude,
I think so.
and they hear the way that you are handling all this.
They're all amazed at my swimming. And when we did the bridges and we swam, it was nighttime in Israel and everybody watched. And all these youngsters saw that swim and saw what we were doing in his memory. And yeah.
Well, incredible. Before we end, Debbie's vision for the future, where do you see yourself, Debbie, in the coming years? New goals, the same goals?
I haven't yet chosen another swimming goal, but my aim right now is just to carry on swimming. I try to swim 5 to 6 times a week, even without the goal. And that's where I am right now. And I'm hoping to find another challenge that will keep me going as well. But with Yaron's name on my cap, he's always beside me. And I just get the strength knowing that I'm doing it in his memory and thinking of him. And he gives me the push to carry on going, as do my other children. But the cap, the "you'll never swim alone," keeps me going.
Absolutely. Debbie Chitiz, thank you so much for being such an inspiring guest on our Monday Motivation Spotlight. You truly are an inspiration, which is why when I met you in person for the first time, I had no hesitation saying, Debbie, you must be a guest on my podcast, because this is what it's all about. Featuring and spotlighting, inspiring people, making a difference in Israel. And you are definitely making a difference in Israel and inspiring others along. So thank you so much for being our guest. I thank our listeners and our viewers for watching this podcast. Thank you as well to our sponsors, to Egerton Cohen Insurance, as well as to Lali's Flower Boutique in Jerusalem. If you enjoyed this, if you found it inspiring, please do subscribe. That way you'll get to see more inspiring people. Yes, not everyone is the Debbie Chitiz, but we've got many inspiring people in this world. Thank you again. Stay safe. I'm Yisrael Chai, and I look forward to seeing you next week on the Monday Motivation Spotlight.